Hello viewers, today we're going to be cleaning and servicing a General Electric branded 5050 BTU air the conditioner. This particular machine is the model AEL05LQG1 from 2012. These have not changed much in design over the last 15 to 20 years, and there's not many different ones. Yes, there's like 50 different brands that they come under, but there's only a handful of OEMs, and there's a very similar design even between OEMs. So this tutorial is applicable to many different air conditioners, almost any 5000 BTU made in the last 20 years. And it might seem daunting because there's a lot of parts and a lot of screws, but the reality is, if you can use a screwdriver and you can follow steps, you can probably do this without a problem. It's not that difficult. And it's worth doing. It'll save you a lot of money compared to buying a new one every couple years, and it will save you a lot of money in operational costs. These units, when they're dirty, they don't perform as well. They use a lot more power and they cost a lot more to run. And the level of filth is kind of deceiving because this one doesn't look all that bad looking at it from the back. In fact, it seems pretty clean. But the airflow passes in the sides and out here, so the dirt accumulates on the other side that you can't see. This is completely plugged. It's filthy. And it's working very poorly. And I will have another video, which I'll link in the description, of calculating the performance of this before and after cleaning. It's quite the difference. So let's get started. Interestingly enough, the filter on this one is relatively clean. This one I found thrown out, and it was just dirty. There's nothing wrong with it. I pick up a lot of air conditioners off the curb, and I would say upwards of 95% of them work perfectly fine. They just need to be cleaned. It's a complete waste. Now, I'm not really a big fan of modern air conditioners. I think the older ones are much better quality, and that's what I use personally. But these little 5000 BTU models, particularly those with electronics controls, are pretty decent. They perform relatively well. They last a decent amount of time. This one's more than 10 years old now. They're just kind of noisy, which is the only drawback to them. Some of them are quieter than others. This one happens to be relatively quiet. So we're going to begin by taking off the window kit. So these panels kind of come off like that, and then they slide up. And this is very sticky because it's covered in tape, and it's full of water, so now my table is getting all wet. This slides up like that. Same thing on the other side. To remove the window kit on the top, there are 4 screws. Oh, that's great. Okay. Anyways, keep in mind, people, this is a free video on the internet. It's not perfect. It will still give you the information that you want. Okay, I'll set these screws aside. The top 4 are different than the others. The rest of them are all pretty much the same though. Okay, the top cover, or the front cover rather, comes off with 2 screws on the bottom. There's one over here. This one is painted white, so I guess these 2 are different as well. They're not functionally different, but they're aesthetically different. We'll remove the knobs. They just pull off. It takes a bit of effort to get them off, but they just pull off like that. Sometimes you have to help them out with a screwdriver behind it to pry it off. This one's really stuck. Might be rusted. Well, that's not ideal. Come on. All right, we'll deal with that later. The side panel has some clips on the side here, or the front panel rather has some clips on the side. Put a screwdriver in the side here. Pop these clips off. I'm not really being particular about cosmetics. If you're particular about cosmetics, do this a little more carefully. Okay, now it's still stuck on because of this knob being on there, so we can kind of leverage the force of the case to pop that off. There we go. All right. So as you can see, our coil is filthy, plugged with dust. This is actually not the worst one I've seen. I've seen ones that are way worse than this. I've done ones where this, this area here, this thick is across the entire coil. It's disgusting. This is actually not that bad on the front. All right, now that we're inside there, I'm going to take the back case off. There's a handful of screws around the side. Two screws on the top. Couple more screws on the back. Not those two, the top four. There's something inside these screws. It's making it very difficult to get them off. It's some kind of like corrosion maybe? I don't know. It's weird. Let's clean out the screw heads there so we can actually use them. Okay, a couple more screws on the other side. Now the cover lifts off like this. Pull this out to the sides and it should come right off. And this is where we start to see all the dirt and grime that's inside the machine. So you can see the condenser is completely plugged. It's not getting air through it at all. That's why it's not working properly. And it's just generally filthy in here. So that you can see how deceiving it is. It looks clean on the outside, but it's completely caked on the inside. So we'll get all that cleaned out. The fan's not bad at all. A lot of times these fans are covered in mold and just completely caked. This is actually kind of reasonable. It's not very moldy either. It's just dust. So, depending on the environment, the filthiness varies, comes in different ways. Sometimes the condenser is clean and the front is caked. Sometimes it's like this. The evaporator is pretty clean, but the condenser is just absolutely caked. Okay, so now we got to start taking apart the air chamber, and we have to slice this down here. We got a knife. I'm gonna make a very clean cut, so when we put it back together, it still makes a seal. So you can see there's two. You can see this, the seam on either side. We'll just cut right inside the seam there. Okay. And then on the other side, we have to do something similar. Make things a little bit easier here. We're going to take off this control panel now, and this is where things are a little bit different brand to brand. This is a pretty decent design for serviceability, but some are different than this. A couple screws down here holding the cord in place. And then we've got a screw on the front that holds the whole unit in place. The control unit. Let's take this grounding wire off. This is actually 2 grounding wires. Take the thermostat off. Take these things out so we can thoroughly clean the coil. There's a 3rd grounding wire there. What the heck? Make sure that dang coil is bonded. There's some sticky, really sticky, gross, like putty ties type thing there. Now on this side, this will just kind of come off like that, so we can wash this piece. And this is all kind of sticky too, it's really gross. Alright, next we're going to remove the fan apparatus, and the wires are going to be a bit of a nuisance. Trying to think if it's worth our time to detach the fan wires or not. It might not be. Let's see how it comes out. No, we're going to detach the fan wires just to make it easier. It's a couple extra steps, but it'll make it easier in the long run. So let's get inside this control panel. How does this come off of here? This one is a little bit different than most of the ones I'm used to. Looks like there's a pry tab right here to release the top part, and there's got to be one down there. Likely the same thing on the other side. So fairly easy to take off. And now we have our compressor wires here and our fan wires. Now there's a capacitor in here which can give you a nice zap if it's charged up. So what I usually do at this point is I just cycle through all the speeds to discharge the capacitor. And so now let's see. The fan, this is the compressor wire here. We'll cut these zip ties off, and we can put those back later. If you cut them right at the, it's not a cutter. If you cut them right at the end, sometimes there's enough slack to redo them, or reuse them. Cut them like that. You could potentially reuse that. This is the fan wire down here. Okay, so our fan, we have two speeds, common and a run for the capacitor. So let's take a minute to write down the way this is set up so that we don't have a fiasco later. Always make notes of where things go when you take wires off. It'll save you a lot of trouble. So on the fan, which is this one, the blue wire is closest to the side. The black wire is further in. That's for the switch. So we'll take those wires off. And then we have, let's take this off too. These are not the cutters. Those never should have been taken off of the bench. The brown wire is the common and the red is run capacitor. Okay, let's take a picture of this in case I lose the paper. Okay, so, and we could also test the capacitor while we're in here too. Make sure it's still good. Actually, we'll just go ahead and do that right now while we're at this stage. It was working fine, so the capacitor likely is fine, but no harm in checking. It just takes a couple extra seconds. Microfarads. So we'll measure, just take all the things off here. Jeez. Those are on there good and tight, which is what you want. You want a nice strong connection. So blue is common. White's common. And yellow is the compressor. So this is an unbranded vegetable oil capacitor. Probably not of the best quality. But it's supposed to be a 35 6 microfarads capacitor. So we'll check the fan, which should be 6. That's good. And we'll check the compressor side, which should be 35, and that's 35, just over 35, so that's good. Our stinking vegetable oil capacitor is still good. No reason to replace that. Okay, so now we can take the fan out more easily because the wires are free. And they are pretty well intertwined here with the capillary tubes, which are wrapped in this blue plastic. This is actually very well designed. Sometimes these capillary tubes can vibrate against other metallic pieces and then wear a pinhole leak. So this is very well designed in the sense it won't do that. It's protected from doing that. It's also protected from making any kind of annoying vibrating noises. Now this is going to take some finagling to get this free, though. It's behind a little clip here, which is moderately difficult to access. You don't want to bend these capillary tubes very much. Okay, there we go. There's another stinking wire tie in there. Actually, that can stay. That's the grounding wire from the fan motor. You know, at this point, you might as well just take the compressor wires off as well to make this even easier. So for the compressor, the white is common. The yellow is hermetics. Blue common. And the black is to the temperature. I'll just detach the whole control unit for now, just to make things easier. Not necessary, but it'll make things easier. You always make things easier when possible. Which is very different than taking shortcuts. Shortcuts result in failure. Okay, now the most difficult part of this is these two screws down inside the fan, which are actually in good shape. A lot of times they rust out. It's that screw right there and that screw over there, which I will go get a very long bit to handle. Excellent tool. I use these bits all the time. Highly recommend everybody gets a set. These fit nicely right down to the bottom, and we can remove these screws with ease. If you don't have this tool, and or if these are all rusted out, this part's a nuisance. Fortunately, we have the tool and they're not rusted out. Okay, now the fan just slides up. Oh, there's two more screws left. Fan should just slide up and out now. Get some good pictures of what this looks like. I need some pictures of this from my other video. Yeah, it's not getting much airflow at all. That's pretty bad. There is zero air getting through there. The only part that has airflow is right there. Everything else, 100% plugged. So again, doesn't look bad from the outside, but it's totally plugged. You should be able to see air through it. This one's kind of plugged. It's not as bad, but you can see air through it. You should be able to see light through it. And even the evaporator is pretty well plugged too. So both of these coils are not going to work, especially that condenser coil. That is really bad. All right, let's detach the fans from the shafts. Oops. So this is now ready to be taken outside to wash. We'll leave this this tray in place. There's no need to take that off. Yeah, that's all good like that. So this can now go outside and get washed. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to drill a drain hole in there too. So now the fans, these usually come off okay. Not sure why, but they usually come off okay. This front one, I believe, is reverse threaded. No, it's not. The front one is not reverse threaded, and maybe the back one is. Yeah, there we go. It just came right off. I don't know why that is. I would expect something like that to be totally stuck on there. Now the back looks like it's got some Loctite on there, so this might take a bit to break it free. And these fans are kind of brittle at this point. Yeah, this one is reverse threaded. That wasn't too bad though. And this one's kind of stuck on here. Very gently tap it with a hammer, try to see if we can push the shaft back. Okay, we broke the seal. That is in fact the washer with red Loctite on it. There's the other washer. And now let's see, will this come off? Yep, there we go. Okay, so we'll get that cleaned up. Now I'll bring the unit back up on the table. This will take out, so actually, you know what? Since we've gone this far, let's make it even easier. Let's dismount the motor so we can wash this a little bit more easily. It's a ball bearing motor, so nothing to service in there. If it starts to get noisy, we can replace the bearings. This one, I believe the bearings are pretty good still. Yeah. I don't really hear anything and they're running free, so not going to replace the bearings because they're not broken. Okay, we'll leave that inside. We're not going to wash that. We'll take this outside. We'll wash this. And I'll put the machine back on the bench. And we're going to drill a drain. Now this is going to spark some debate, and that's fine. You're entitled to a difference in opinion. My opinion, after years and years of working on these things, is that there should not be water inside here. So I like to drill a hole in the lowest part of the machine, which will be down here on this one, and let the water out. So we're going to use what's called a step bit, which is the best tool I'm aware of to drill through there. You can make multiple different size holes with this. Usually a ½ inch is good enough. Anything that's like a 1/4 and smaller will clog with dust pretty quick. Whoa. Bit freak show. This is what the bit looks like. Kind of looks like a traffic cone. And this works very, very well. It's a very powerful bit. make sure this is not going to drill through the table. That wouldn't be very helpful. And here we go. I guarantee that will give you many more years out of the air conditioner, because this will stop the rust. And it will also help this not get so bad, because when the coil is wet and then the dust goes through there, it sticks. But if the coil is dry, the dust will pass through better. Just make sure this is deburred. This bit does deburr very nicely. It's a good clean hole. There we go. I always do that. Every single air conditioner I service gets this, unless the customer specifically says not to. But I think that this is much better. Okay, let's go outside. We're going to begin by flushing out all this sludge that's in the bottom. Some people like to, certainly not Kevin, but some people like to vacuum this and clean it with dry brushes and try, before doing this, and I don't understand why, because it all rinses off very easily. That's the bulk of the junk. Now we got to get some coil cleaner mixed up. Get the rest of it off the table. I'm not going to need a lot of coil cleaner because this is a small machine. That's cool. Duh. That's actually probably too much water. We're going to have to use a fairly strong amount, probably 1 to 4 on this, because this is so dirty. This is very powerful cleaner. This is the cleaner. When it gets this bad, there's not much you can do without a cleaner like this. If it's not that bad, you know, like if you clean it every year or every couple months like you should, you can use simple green or the complicated purple. You can use automotive soap. A lot of times just a good spray with the garden hose, just water, is even good enough. If you get to it before it cakes up like this. Once it cakes up like this, you're out of luck. You got to use a good cleaner. The lighting under here is not ideal. Okay, so I'm going to spray the coil cleaner in. I'm going to start from the other side and use high pressure spray to force the coil cleaner into the coil as far as possible in hopes that it'll foam up and push the dirt out. Use very high pressure spray. That's pretty dirty. Even using this outside, I keep a fan running nearby just to keep the air moving. This is really, really toxic stuff. Try to get some more in that top right corner where it's really plugged. Now we're going to rinse the same way. We're going to rinse from the back and spray it towards the front to push the dirt in the opposite direction of which it was pushed in. We use pretty good pressure on the hose here, but not too much. Alright, now that we've got most of it out of there, we'll do another cleaning just twice. I'm not going to do any more than that. You can already see how much light's coming through the coil now. It's already 98% better. There's a little bit of staining on it, which we're not going to worry about. And there's also some deterioration towards the bottom, which will completely flake apart if you spray it with too much pressure. So we're not going to spray the bottom much at all. Just let a little bit more of it run down the coil and try to get into any areas that we couldn't get into before because it was too plugged up. While that soaks, we'll move to the evaporator, which is not as bad. I really wish we could get a better picture of this. Try moving this light around here. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Actually, that's much better. And again, we're going to use a very high pressure spray to try to force the cleaner in there as much as possible. And we'll go in from the back as well. Technically, we should be spraying from the back to do the opposite of the airflow. But this isn't so plugged that it's not going to get through. Now the front coil has a corrosion resistive coating on it, so that should really come out looking like new. The back will be stained, but it's just cosmetic, not a big deal. So the evaporator coil looks very, very good now because of that corrosion resistive coating. It really works. I don't know why that's not a standard on all units on all coils. It should be. It's stupid that it's not. Okay, why is this? Oh, here we go. Reset up the light to where it was. So our condenser coil is looking pretty clear. Our evaporator coil is looking pretty clear. Coils are done. Let's rinse out some of the sludge that's residing in the base. There's a little bit of mold inside the chamber here, which we'll get out. Not much. Oh, there's all sorts of junk on the bottom too. Not much cleaner left here, but we'll spray a little bit in there. Oh, that's not ideal. I just got some cleaner on a different machine under here. Gotta rinse that out of there. It'll never be cosmetically perfect. I always kind of feel like whatever doesn't come off with the brush and the cleaner is not going to come off in the air, so you probably don't have to worry about it. Get out of here, there's a stupid yellow jacket. Do not spray the coils with a pressure washer. That is a bad idea. There are people that do that and they wreck coils. Don't do it. Even just the garden hose pressure can damage coils. Okay, now we have to do some rinsing. I like to take the nozzle off the hose and just saturate it for several minutes, because any residual amount of that cleaner on there can corrode things over time. So we want to make sure that we get every iota of that cleaner out of here. Very, very important. Alright, this should be good for the rinsing. Now we'll move on to the rest of the components. Just dump this out one more time. Actually, before we do that, while we're still rinsing, let's fix a couple of these pieces on the coil that are no good. What numbers? This is a 20 FPI coil. I'm not obsessive about this, but if there's a couple spots like this that we can pretty easily fix, I will go through and correct them. Just looks nicer, and any bit of airflow that's restricted is never good. I want as much airflow as possible. Some of this is damage beyond what the coil comb can fix, but some of it's improvable. That's too far in for the coil comb to really fix this perfectly, but I'll just spend a few minutes trying to make it a little bit better. And there we go, we made it a little bit better. But more air passed than it would have before. Alright, that's as much as I'm interested in doing in there. I'm not going to bother with the bottom part because that's a little flaky. The evaporator is pretty good. There's just a few parts. This is a different FPI, I think. Yeah, this is 18. Or is it a 20? No, I guess it might be a 19, I don't know. The 20's working okay. Okay, that's good. I'm not going to spend any more time on that. That is a unit of diminishing returns. Alright, so now when we get the unit out of here, just put it in the sun to dry. It doesn't really matter if it's wet or dry, it gets wet during operation anyways. Plop this in the sun. Pretty windy today, it should dry out quick. It's windy and hot. It's beautiful today. Okay, now we're gonna empty this out because this will get messed up if we let the... Whoops, that wasn't good. Huh. Is there some cleaner left in this? You know what, let's just mix up a touch more. Or actually, you know what I have here? I have this cleaner that I used last time. I had some left over. This is already mixed up. Just pour this in there. Oh, that's not really working. Now it's working. I have to make it a little bit more cleaner. Not good. That's nearly broken. That's okay, it'll still work. It'll still cool. It'll still fit in the window. Life will go on. If you're so inclined, glue it. Don't throw it out. It's salvageable. Things are looking much better than before. You can see through this coil. We can see through this coil. There's some staining and it looks not the greatest, but it's a point of diminishing returns with that coil cleaner because it's so powerful. This is probably 90+% open. It's going to drastically improve the performance. Everything else looks pretty clean. All the parts are pretty clean. Fans are clean. Much better. Let's begin reassembling this like new air conditioner. Okay, so first we're going to put the fan blades back on the motor. Put the motor back on the holder. I don't know what the technical name for this part is. Oh gosh, you know, I'm gonna switch on the fan. It's pretty hot in here. Okay, so the motor goes it's gonna go like this. And the wire will go over like that. We want to use a low torque setting so we don't strip anything out, because these are just going into plastic. Wires will clip under there like this. And yes, this is a little bit dirty still. It doesn't matter. It's on the outdoor portion. Air doesn't pass over it. That goes back into the room. It's not going to restrict any airflow, etc. And this dust here is also on the outside. We'll just take some of that off for good measure. Okay. Let's get the condenser blade back on. There's a flat part on there that lines up with the flat part on the shaft. And it's turning from the fan that's on over there. Nice vintage patent fan. And so now we need a washer, a lock washer, and a nut. And they're not the same front and back. They're two different size, different threads. This one is reverse threaded, which is very confusing to try to work with. Okay, and now the evaporator fan, which does need to be cleaned because this is where the inside air goes through. There's a rubber washer that goes in there first. This also has a flat spot. the washer, the locking washer, and the nut. Okay, we're ready to put the fan apparatus back into the unit. There's a track that this lines up on the condenser coil. It's actually more so on the other side that the track exists. It slips inside in between there. A little bit more of a graceful entry would be ideal, but it's in place. A couple tabs at the bottom that line up where the screws are. Come on. See the tabs there? No, you can't see them. There you go. Looks like new in there. And it's going to work like new too. Okay, so this wire we're going to route down here like this. Back to the way it was. Actually, there's one more thing I want to do before we reassemble this, and that is to check inside the compressor terminals just to make sure that they're copacetic. It looks like this has a... What the heck? I don't know why that's necessary. It's really not necessary. I wonder if that's some kind of like anti-repair type material going on there. Likely not going to do anything in here, just want to check for moisture and check for any signs of corrosion or weakening of the terminals. This seems to have a pretty good seal, so it should be fine. Yep, everything is fine. Looks good. No rust, no corrosion, no moisture. Nothing to do in there. Just put that right back. And leave that undisturbed, because it's not having any problems. Okay. Alright, so let's get the top of the evaporator chamber back in place. Which is this. That's about all there is to that. Just kind of sits there. it'll be secured in place by the rest of the case. And now the controls. This is a little dirty, but again, it's on the outside. There's no indoor air passing through here. There's actually no outdoor air passing through here either. So I'm not too concerned about it. There's a clip on the side here that will hold the fan wires. I don't think it really grabs the compressor wire much. Okay, let's get that screwed in. Okay, while we're in here, I'm going to take the thermostat off and see if it has an adjustment. I want to turn it down a little bit if possible. These are usually not set much below 70. And if you have a humid night that's kind of cool, it's nice to be able to kick this on and get it run a little bit longer. Some of these have an adjustment knob and some of them don't. This one, there it is down there. That's going to be your adjustment screw. So this is, yeah, it's just barely clicking on. And it's 76 in here, so let's change the set point to come on a little bit sooner. Yeah, that's the wrong direction. We'll have it shut off around like 78 perhaps. Okay, it's just barely clicking off. That's good. One more adjustment. Okay. Good. Now it's adjusted to what I think is a more reasonable point. Go ahead and slip that back in there. That's one of the advantages to the mechanical controls over the electronics controls, is you can recalibrate it. You can't do that with the electronic controls. I think with the electronic controls, at least on the newer ones, you're stuck with 66 degrees as the low. There's nothing you can do about it. If you got a mechanical control, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so let's get the document here. And for the compressor, capacitor sits up there. For the compressor, which is this, the yellow wire is the run, which is this side. The blue is the common to the capacitor, and the black is the high side to the thermostat. Okay, and then the fan, the black, goes to inside terminal. And the blue goes to the inner terminal here. And the red is the run to the capacitor. And the brown is the common. Okay, the wiring is all reconnected. Now the thermostat routes to the front like this, and those two little plastic pieces will hold that in place. It's very important that the thermostat probe does not go too close to the coil, because if it goes too close to the coil, it will satisfy the thermostat prematurely, and then it won't run for very long at all. Was that there or was it somewhere else? It doesn't really matter. No, I guess it was over here. It does not have to go in exactly the same place, but I like to put it back in the same place so that you're not damaging new fins every time you put this on or off. So I leave that kind of as far out as much as I can, and then that sits in there. No, I was supposed to go over here. Always trust your instincts. And see, at no point is this touching the coil. It's far away from the coil. That is how it needs to be. Not touching the coil at any point. Alright, let's put these grounding screws back on. So the dust there, we'll get that all fixed out in a minute. Okay. I think that we're just about ready to slip the cover back on. And I'm not worried about all those wire tie wrap and things. They're not necessary. As long as the wire is out of the way, which it is, we're fine. I checked it. It's nowhere near the fan blade. I'm not going to have any problems. Or at least this machine's not going to have any problems. Okay, so much better now. Very clean inside. You can see right through the coil. That's the way it's supposed to be. See the light in there? Clean coil. No dust, no mold. Clean coil. See the light passing through there? Excellent. Come on, tripod. Pod. Okay. I'll slip the cover back on. I'll do that from the back. It's got dusty just from sitting in the stinking sun for 10 minutes. Pollen out there is crazy. Oh, rats. I forgot something. Forgot the fan screws. Those are just a touch important. That screw is stripped out. Okay, what we forgot is those two screws that hold the fan in place down there. We'll use our long bit to get those back in place. Indispensable tool. Yeah, that's not the screw that goes there. It doesn't need that little plastic washer. Those are for the metal, where it sits on metal. But come on! The heck? Jeez. Okay, now we've got everything. And speaking of forgetting things, I just realized I also forgot to wash the filter. That's not a big deal. I'll do that after the video inside. Okay, now we'll reinstall the window kit. I didn't clean the window kit either. I have to hit that with what's that stuff? Goo Gone. Clean that up a little bit more. Yeah, actually, no, I'll leave that off for now. But it's the same. It's the same process. The screws just go in the top where they came out, and the pieces slide on and they go in place on the track. The front cover is a touch yellowed from the sun, but It still works just fine. Whoa. Okay, put our knobs back in place. Much better temperature range now. Okay, let's shut it on and make sure it still works. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't, but wouldn't be the first time something doesn't work that should. Shut off this fan. Fan's not hitting anything. Good airflow. Getting cool. And just to prove it, I'll turn on the temperature meter here because that's undeniable evidence that it's working. Okay, our ambient temperature is about 77 according to the thermometer in here. According to this, it's about 75. And there's 53, so there's a correct delta. So this is now working much better than it was before. It's only using 362 watts as opposed to, I think it was almost 600 before. So this will run a lot more efficiently now that it's clean, and it'll last a lot longer with that drain hole.